So tell us who you are, please.
My name is Jessica Sanchez. I'm 20.
Jessica Sanchez was not just another contestant on America's Got Talent 2025. She was the phenomenon. With a voice that could command silence in a stadium and emotion that seemed to radiate straight through the screen, she instantly became a household name. From the moment she opened her mouth on stage, the internet lit up with praise, calling her a once-in-a-generation voice and dubbing her the next big global star. Fans flooded social media, clips of her performances trended worldwide, and even harsh critics couldn't deny she had that elusive it factor. By the time the season finale aired, she wasn't just a frontrunner. She was the undisputed favorite to take home the crown and transform that TV exposure into a mega career. But then, something happened. Something no one expected. Within days of the grand finale, Jessica vanished. No interviews. No celebratory posts. No red carpets. Just silence. Her name disappeared from the entertainment headlines, and fans were left scratching their heads. The girl who was supposed to dominate the charts was suddenly nowhere to be found. Online forums exploded. Where was she? Why wasn't she doing press? Why did she pull out of scheduled appearances? Whispers began circulating that she wasn't just taking a break. She had walked away completely. Some claimed she was forced into silence by a contract gone wrong. Others hinted at a scandal the public didn't know about. Conspiracy theories gained traction. Did she clash with producers? Did she break some unspoken rule of the industry? But the one thing everyone agreed on was this: Jessica's disappearance didn't make sense. How does someone go from being America's newest darling to a ghost in less than a week? With no answers from her team and no sightings to ease the growing panic, fans were left wondering whether something far more serious had happened behind the scenes, something darker than any of them could imagine. And what they'd soon discover would only deepen the mystery. As confusion mounted and Jessica Sanchez's silence stretched into weeks, the whispers grew louder, turning into full-blown allegations about what might have driven her into the shadows. Industry insiders, speaking on condition of anonymity, began leaking details that painted a very different picture from the glitz and glamour America had seen on screen. According to multiple sources, Jessica hadn't simply vanished. She had reached a breaking point behind closed doors. The root of the problem? Creative control. Reports surfaced suggesting that Jessica was deeply unhappy with the terms of the contract she had signed during her time on AGT. Far from a launching pad to artistic freedom, the contract was described as restrictive, even suffocating. Allegedly, producers dictated everything from her song choices to how she dressed, spoke, and posted on social media. Her raw talent was being packaged into something marketable, but not necessarily authentic, and Jessica pushed back. Multiple heated arguments reportedly erupted backstage between her and the executive team. One insider described her as frustrated, drained, and desperate to be heard. She didn't want to be a puppet. She wanted to be an artist. The clashes escalated. She was allegedly told that refusing to cooperate could jeopardize her post-show career entirely. Rumors swirled that some behind-the-scenes figures wanted her to conform to a pop star mold she had never signed up for. It wasn't just her voice they wanted, it was control over her entire image. And as the pressure mounted, Jessica began to spiral. Friends say she felt creatively trapped, emotionally cornered, and misunderstood by the very people who were supposed to support her. She reportedly expressed regret about ever joining the show, calling the experience a cage disguised as a dream. While her fans continued to wait eagerly for her next move, behind the scenes Jessica was reportedly fighting a silent war to reclaim ownership of her identity. But with the spotlight blinding and contracts legally binding, the question became, could she walk away without consequences? Or was the silence her only form of protest? And if so, what would she do next? Just as speculation about Jessica Sanchez's behind-the-scenes battles hit a fever pitch, a new development sent fans and media alike spiraling into panic. Her complete and unexplained disappearance from all social media platforms. Practically overnight, Jessica's once vibrant Instagram, filled with behind-the-scenes clips, raw rehearsal moments, and personal reflections, froze in time. No updates, no stories, No live sessions. Her Twitter and TikTok followed suit, going eerily silent. Even her official fan club pages, usually abuzz with curated updates, suddenly stopped posting. It was as if Jessica had been wiped from the internet. And to her growing legion of supporters, this wasn't just odd, it was alarming. Was she okay? Was someone silencing her? Had she simply given up? Online forums exploded with wild theories. Some claimed she was secretly working on a rebrand or a revolutionary new project away from the prying eyes of the public. Others suggested something much darker, that Jessica might be in a personal crisis, struggling under the pressure of overnight fame and the isolation it brings. The hashtag #WhereIsJessica began trending globally, with fans flooding her last known posts with questions and pleas for answers. Her management team offered nothing but silence, a move that only deepened the sense of mystery. Then came the cryptic clues, unverified accounts claiming sightings of her in random locations, subtle likes from dormant accounts, and screenshots allegedly showing her name appearing on underground music projects. Were these hints deliberate? A strategy to build anticipation for a comeback? Or were fans simply desperate to believe she was okay? The lack of clarity turned concern into obsession. Everyone wanted to know where she was, why she'd gone silent, and whether she was ever coming back. But amid the chaos, one thing was clear. Jessica Sanchez wasn't just vanishing. Whether intentional or not, she was creating a storm of intrigue that would soon make her return, if it ever came, even more explosive than her original rise. Just when it seemed like Jessica Sanchez had disappeared for good, something unexpected began to ripple through the underground music scene, a low whisper that Jessica was back, but not in the way anyone had predicted. Long before a formal announcement, leaked audio clips began surfacing on obscure forums and anonymous SoundCloud accounts. The voice was unmistakable, raw, aching, powerful, Jessica, but unlike anything fans had heard before. Gone was the polished pop production and reality TV packaging. In its place were stripped-down tracks filled with haunting piano melodies, jarring electronic elements, and lyrics that read like entries from a torn-up diary. Her new sound wasn't designed to please the masses. It was meant to challenge, to provoke, to heal. Critics who stumbled upon the leaks were stunned. This wasn't a comeback. This was a reinvention. Soon, rumors swirled that Jessica had performed an unannounced set at an underground venue in Los Angeles, an invite-only event attended by a hand-picked group of influencers, indie producers, and trusted friends. Attendees described the experience as electric and emotionally devastating. She stood under a single spotlight, no backup dancers, no elaborate staging, just her, a mic, and a fire that had clearly been building inside for years. She reportedly broke down mid-performance while singing a track called Unwritten Scars, a haunting ballad that left the room in tears. Clips from the performance leaked almost immediately, going viral within hours and reigniting Jessica's name across social media with headlines reading, "She's back, reborn," and "Unfiltered Jessica Sanchez shocks industry." The reaction was split. Longtime fans hailed her as a phoenix rising from the ashes. Music journalists praised her bravery and artistic integrity. But skeptics scoffed, accusing her of manufacturing a dramatic transformation for attention. Jessica remained unfazed. In a brief interview posted by an indie zine, she stated, "This is the music I always wanted to make. I had to break myself to find my real voice." With those words, it was clear Jessica Sanchez wasn't just returning to music. She was returning on her own terms. But as fans began to embrace this bolder, freer version of Jessica, no one could have predicted the next bombshell that was about to drop, a deeply personal truth she had hidden for years. As the world adjusted to Jessica Sanchez's bold reinvention, the conversation around her comeback took an unexpected and deeply emotional turn. Rumors that had once circulated in hushed tones were suddenly thrust into the spotlight. Whispers of personal battles, silent breakdowns, and emotional scars she had long kept hidden. Industry insiders, who had once stayed quiet now, began speaking out, hinting that Jessica's disappearance wasn't just about contractual disputes or creative control. It was about survival. Allegedly, in the chaotic months following her rise to fame, Jessica grappled with anxiety, isolation, and the suffocating pressure. While the world was still reeling from Jessica Sanchez's emotional revelation and musical transformation, another unexpected storm was quietly brewing. One that had nothing to do with her music, yet threatened to eclipse everything she'd worked so hard to reclaim. For years, Jessica had fiercely guarded her private life, refusing to play into tabloid bait or social media oversharing. Interviews were strictly professional, and any hint of romance was met with a practiced smile and a polite deflection. But all of that changed one night when paparazzi cameras captured a single unguarded moment. Jessica, hand in hand with a mystery partner, walking through a quiet Los Angeles street just after midnight. The photo was grainy, but the internet exploded. Headlines screamed Jessica's secret romance revealed, while social media went into meltdown mode trying to identify the man beside her. Within hours, the internet sleuths struck gold. Her companion was revealed to be a rising musician known for his moody, alternative style and underground fame. Suddenly, speculation shifted from curiosity to full-blown obsession. Were they collaborators? Was this romance the inspiration behind her new music? Had they met during her hiatus? Fan pages filled with side-by-side photo analyses, deep dive timelines, and conspiracy threads that try to trace every moment they'd ever possibly cross paths. Some fans cheered her on, thrilled that she had found happiness after so much turmoil. Others were skeptical, accusing her of using the relationship to stay relevant. Jessica, for her part, remained silent. No confirmation, no denial, just the same enigmatic silence that had followed her for over a year. But then, without warning, she broke it. In a single Instagram story, Jessica posted a black screen with white text. "Love isn't a press release. My life inspires my art, but it doesn't owe anyone an explanation. Thank you for understanding." That was it. No names. No photos, just a line that said everything and nothing all at once. The internet lit up again, this time not with outrage, but with respect. Her fans rallied behind her, praising her grace and the quiet strength she carried in the face of relentless public intrusion. The mystery remained, but the message was clear. Jessica wasn't hiding anymore. She was just living. And yet, just as her personal and professional life seemed to find equilibrium, what came next would ignite the biggest shock of all. One that would turn Jessica's name into a permanent fixture in music history. The storm of speculation surrounding Jessica Sanchez's personal life had barely begun to calm when she dropped the biggest bombshell of her career. Her official comeback album, dramatically titled Unfiltered. With no flashy promos, no industry hype, and no major label push, the release came out of nowhere, just a cryptic teaser video and a date. But what followed was nothing short of seismic. Unfiltered wasn't just an album, it was a confession, a battle cry, and a diary of everything she had survived. From the first haunting piano chord to the final, trembling whisper, every track felt like a page torn straight from her soul. The lyrics didn't shy away from anything. Betrayal, loss of control, identity crises, anxiety, shattered dreams. It was all laid bare. Songs like Broken Contract, Room Full of Lies, and Exit Stage Left weren't subtle metaphors. They were bullets aimed at the machine that had once tried to silence her. And the world listened. Within 24 hours, Unfiltered shot to the top of global streaming charts, beating out mainstream pop juggernauts with nothing more than word of mouth and raw power. Music critics, many of whom had once dismissed her as just another reality TV star, now lined up to praise her as a visionary. Reviewers called it a career-defining masterpiece, a brutal, brilliant awakening, and the most honest album of the decade. Fans flooded social media with emotional reactions, creating viral threads about how her songs mirrored their own battles. Hashtags like #UnfilteredTruth and #JessicaIsBack dominated the digital space. And Jessica? She didn't gloat. She didn't go on a press tour. She simply posted, "Thank you for listening. That was all I ever wanted." But not everyone was clapping. A vocal minority accused her of manipulating pain for profit, of weaponizing trauma to sell records. Critics claimed she was too calculated, too conveniently vulnerable. Yet, Their voices were quickly drowned out by a tidal wave of support from listeners who finally felt seen, heard, and understood. In just 10 tracks, Jessica Sanchez had transformed from a former talent show runner-up to a full-fledged artist, with a voice that no longer needed permission to speak. But even as Unfiltered broke records and reshaped her legacy, one question still lingered. Had Jessica finally found peace, or was this just the calm before another storm? As Unfiltered blazed across the charts and Jessica Sanchez basked in a wave of long overdue acclaim, a new wave of controversy quietly stirred beneath the surface, one that threatened to cloud her hard-earned artistic redemption. While millions celebrated her raw vulnerability and musical rebirth, there were those who questioned her motives, suggesting that the pain she had poured into her album wasn't just authentic, it was strategic. Critics began to circulate think pieces with headlines like, "Is Jessica Sanchez selling suffering?" and "When art becomes exploitation." They dissected her lyrics, her interviews, even the timing of her emotional statements, looking for signs that her trauma had been commodified into a brand. The backlash wasn't massive, but it was loud, and it sparked a complex debate across the internet. Was Jessica brave or calculated? Honest or manipulative? A survivor or a self-made spectacle? The irony was painful. After years of being silenced, Jessica was now being criticized for speaking too freely. But while the noise grew louder, Jessica herself remained remarkably composed. She refused to respond directly to the accusations, choosing instead to let her music and her fans do the talking. And they did, in droves. Influencers, mental health advocates, and fellow artists flooded social media with support, creating campaigns that reframed the criticism as yet another example of how society often punishes women, especially women of color, for daring to be complex and unfiltered. Fan videos went viral, showing how Jessica's lyrics had inspired personal healing, helped listeners through depression, or even saved lives. Online threads lit up with people sharing how they no longer felt alone in their struggles thanks to her voice. It became clear that whatever her critics said, Jessica's impact was real, measurable, and deeply human. And if her story had taught the world anything, it was that strength isn't about being perfect. It's about standing tall in the chaos. Through it all, Jessica never broke character. She continued to perform, speak, and create, all while dodging the spotlight she used to chase. In her silence, there was a new kind of power. But as her influence grew and her message reached deeper, the final act of her story was quietly taking shape, a sobering reflection on fame itself, and the invisible cost of being seen by the entire world. As Jessica Sanchez continued her quiet reign as an artist reborn, her journey began to transcend the boundaries of a music comeback. It became a mirror reflecting something far more unsettling: the true, unspoken cost of fame. Beneath the accolades, chart numbers, and glowing reviews, a deeper question began to take root, not just in the minds of her fans, but across the industry. Was it all worth it? Jessica's story, once a tale of a young woman silenced by a system, was now a case study in the emotional disfigurement that can come from overnight stardom. She had lived every aspiring artist's dream: national spotlight, mass adoration, and a platform seen by millions. But the reality behind the curtains was riddled with anxiety, manipulation, and identity erosion. The polished performances America once cheered were now seen through a different lens. Moments of vulnerability dressed as triumph. And as her truth unraveled, more and more former contestants and behind-the-scenes insiders began sharing similar stories. Contracts that stifled creativity. Executives who prized marketability over mental health. Fans who turned cruel when expectations weren't met. It wasn't just Jessica anymore, it was a pattern. A system that elevated, exploited, and discarded with brutal efficiency. And while Jessica never publicly waged war against the machine that nearly broke her, her art did the speaking. Each lyric in Unfiltered, each silent pause in her interviews, each decision to withdraw instead of explain, it all told the same story. This fame came with a price tag most people would never see. She had sacrificed normalcy, privacy, and peace just to reclaim her voice. And though she emerged stronger, the scars remained. As audiences reflected on her journey, the narrative shifted from idolizing fame to questioning its ethics. What are we asking?